What is the best piece of equipment to grow your media career? All right, so production's a little slow for me this week, which has motivated me to put this video together. I've been in the process of fixing broken equipment that's been piling up on my workbench for over 10 months. And I also moved out of a storage facility where I was storing a bunch of gear that I'm not using as frequently as in the past. I've been hanging on to things, thinking, man, I used that so much before, it's gonna come back around. But the reality is, I'm paying to store this stuff and I'm not touching it. It's clearly time to unload it, move on, and adapt and chase the things that are relevant and try to anticipate what my customers are going to ask for in the future. All right, so before I answer the question, little backstory. When I was 20 years old, 2 years into film school, I put my education on hold and moved to Los Angeles. I wanted to kind of just give it a shot in the media business, entertainment business, and see if it was truly something attainable for me before I continued to accumulate, let's see, it would have been another $60,000+ in debt on top of the, I think I had about 65 at that point in play, 2 years into a 4-year degree that probably would have taken me 5 years because of the way I'd structured it and some of the additional courses I wanted to take. So anyway, put that on hold, came out to LA, and I picked up a staff job as an editor, which I've talked about in previous videos, but I was also, in my free time, I would jump on these little no and low budget features and just little creative works. I just wanted to gain experience, exposure, meet people, do the thing you're supposed to do when you're out in LA or New York. On one of those no or low budget projects, one of the production people there was in their mid-50s and clearly a seasoned professional in the entertainment business. And after we wrapped up that production, I think I was helping move the camera truck. I think I backed it up into a tight location or something, and it wasn't a big deal. I grew up driving little work trucks, and I had a work truck for the city that I drove in high school. So anyway, it turns out this guy, he said to me, he's like, hey, you considered, taking a job in transportation at one of the studio lots? I said, I don't know anything about it. So this guy explained to me that he's a Teamster and he works on a show at Paramount Pictures, a major TV show where he's running the transportation department. This guy offered me a job at Paramount driving a small stake bed truck, and I don't remember the numbers, but it was a few dollars an hour more than I was making working 40-hour weeks at this post-production facility. And I passed right away. I didn't even hesitate. I'm like, nah, I don't want to drive trucks. I mean, I came out here because I want to direct, I want to be a camera, I want to edit and do the creative stuff. And he's like, well, this is a rare opportunity. It's very difficult to break into the studio system. You're going to get your card immediately, after an initial trial period. So you're going to be surrounded by A-list talent and the top professionals in their various trades, and you're going to become on a first-name basis with all of these people. And it's you don't have to make a career out of driving trucks, but it's an opportunity in. So anyway, yeah, I just passed, and he's like, well, let me break it down for you. Let me just run you through a typical work day. He's like, we start about 5:30 in the morning. You come over to the lot, which was in Hollywood. You pick up your stake bed, and then you go over to a storage warehouse facility in Burbank, and you wait at the loading dock, and they fill the order, whatever they need that day, like flats and set pieces. And there's another set of workers that roll it out to the truck. Your only responsibility is to strap everything down and make sure it's safe. You drive it back to the studio, and then we're on standby in case I need any additional things I hadn't anticipated. What we do during standby is a mandatory pickup basketball game, 45 minutes to up to 2 hours. They do that, and then it's basically lunchtime. You have lunch, and in the afternoon you're doing the reverse. You're running stuff back to storage or elsewhere in town, and then go home from the night, and you come back next day, same thing, 5-day week. They were working 10 hours. You have a base pay guaranteed at 8 hours base. And then some days you'll go 10, you might go 14, and that's when the overtime gets wonderful. It's time and a half for hours 9 and 10, and double time 12+. So you work whatever the season duration is on a particular show, a couple months, and then the show will go on break until the following season. Hopefully it gets picked up again. And what I learned is a lot of the people in that transportation department, they just work this one show, and then they spend the other like 7 months of the year out of town, like cabin in the woods in Montana, or surf trip down, bouncing around South America, or whatever. Basically, phenomenal lifestyle. You're working like less than half the year and making potentially more money than a lot of other professionals do over 12 months. The last meeting I had with him, I had breakfast with him, and he's like, all right, look, I'm at 32 years, selling my house in Sherman Oaks. He's like, I'm moving full-time to, I forget where, Montana or Wyoming. He had this like beautiful piece of multi-acres on a lake, and he had a little cabin there, but his plan was to move up there. He had his fully vested pension at that point. I want to say he was like maybe 52, early 50s. But he started like right out of high school. And he's like, I got a bunch of equity in my house. I got my pension at my 30-year mark. I got a bunch of dough set aside. He's like, I'm out. I'm going to go enjoy the next, 20, 30 years of my life. And that was it. I hadn't heard from him since. Now, I kind of regret now, years later. It's like, yeah, I should have given it a shot. I should have at least put in, a year, tried it out. And I bet if I'd stayed in that transportation world at this point, I'd own a bunch of trailers, gen sets, a couple tractors. I'd have a rental business. I'd have something that's scalable, and it would have given me the option to, not just work on set and earn a paycheck. All right, so if you haven't figured out where this is going, the best piece of equipment to purchase if you're starting out and you want to work on sets as a crew member, buy a work truck, specifically a cargo van. Now, it doesn't matter which department you want to pursue or what you're doing or zero experience. If you're someone, you roll up in a van, it's like instantly, it's very clear that you're serious about what you're doing. Great way to get you noticed by a bunch of different areas, and you'll move around and probably discover, maybe there's a different department that's more lucrative or more enjoyable than what you're initially pursuing. So I suggest this to pretty much any new ambitious person that asks me, I'm thinking of buying this camera or that lighting equipment, and do you think I'll get more work because of that? And well, all right, if you're gonna buy one thing, start with the van. Once you get the van, you can fill it with stuff. So this is my 4th work truck. I usually make a change about every 5 years. There's some overlap. Several times I've had 2. I taper from one into the next over 6 months to over multiple years. And I just, last couple years, I've had 2 trucks at the same time. All right, I'm gonna run you through a few different specialty careers that are hinged around having a van. The first is this guy named Matt. I've worked with him a few times up in Los Angeles. He's connected to the location rental companies, particularly houses, higher-end residential homes. And what this guy Matt does is he puts down the layout board or RAM board, the cardboard on the floors, and the square things that go on outside corners of drywall to protect the house from all the carts and stands and steel that a film crew's banging around in the house. Problem with cardboard is it's one use, it's in the trash. You can generate a lot of trash with production. And so he started acquiring the rubber like doormats, those big industrial ones you'd see in like a shop or a retail entrance, and reusing those wherever possible and minimizing the cardboard. And then he's got the eco-friendly spin. And of course, since the guy's name is Matt, he built his whole business around rubber mat. Call Rubber Matt, eco-friendly. I don't know, he's probably got a whole fleet of vans at this point. Another scenario, a good friend of mine who just like a really talented generalist. He kind of jumped around, did some gripping, electric, camera department, camera support, production coordinating, just smart dude. And he evolved into professional photography and working as a photo assistant on like the big fashion stuff. And what he started doing as a photo assist is he would see that there's always like consistent shortfalls of things that you need midday that they didn't order enough of. Like one of them was tables like you break the crew for lunch and they're short a table or two. So I think he started with like a couple extra tables and chairs in his car, and then he was just the problem solver. Like, oh, we're out of tables. Oh, well, I have a couple in my car. Let me bring them out here for you guys. And then that evolved into a Sprinter package with like tables, easy up, space heaters, coffee machines, walkie-talkies, and either a la carte rentals or you pre-order the package. But in either case, he's always got extra of everything, so you've got the incremental support and upsell there on site. And again, kind of like the Transpo thing, he's built this scalable business of he's got multiple vans now, and he's got assistants trained up to run his trucks, and he can, if he wants to, he can just run the business. He doesn't necessarily have to be out there on set. Most of my peers in camera and sound, same thing, they're driving a cargo van. It's just the way to go. It's like you kind of like, yeah, put a ramp in there, you have your cart, you get your common stuff you use every day is on the cart, so you just roll the cart out in and you get to work. It's secure, like I prefer vans with no windows in the cargo area and a partition, so that when I'm parking in questionable neighborhoods, which is most of the time, if I got to run in and get dinner or picking up coffee or something on the way in or out, I'm not worrying about a smashed window and stolen item. It's like even if they smash that, say the driver's side window, they can't get in the back. They're, they got to cut through steel or aluminum. And I hope at that point they're making enough of a racket that they've got my attention or other people's attention. It's just, it's going to be easier to steal the whole truck than get in the back. So in my early 20s, few years into the business, at that point I still had never purchased a car. I moved out to California. My grandmother gave me her old beat up Buick. It's high miles, I don't know, maybe 120,000 miles. The air conditioning didn't work. And I drove that car with sandbags and C-stands in the trunk to the point where I bent the rear axle. And but it was a free car and it ran great. It just didn't have AC. And I actually bought a cargo van before replacing that car. So I had I bought this used van. I think it was about $15,000, 40, 250, and I had payments on it. I think it was about $400 a month. And I never had a month where the van did not cover its own costs, payment and insurance and rentals. And I continued to do that for a number of years while I was saving as much cash as I could. And I bought a house before I bought my first personal vehicle. So I went through the cycle for a while there where I had a couple of different cars, got the nice sports car in addition to the work truck. And the past 4 years, I don't have a personal vehicle. That's my one and only. And we have, my wife drives a Honda, and we use that as the family car to get around. And then I have this, and that's it. Thing was cheap. I bought it new. I paid cash for it. It's 4 years old, 50,000 miles. I have no plans to replace it. It still serves my needs. All right, so I'm thinking in a future video, I'll do a little tour of my camera setup in the back and why I've laid it out the way I have. If there's anything specific you want me to cover in that regard, please comment below. And that's it for now. Go shop for a van.